family, Madam Chair. Let's go to the Father. Lord, again, we thank you for this time that we've come together. Father, you're such a good God and a gracious God. And Father, we need your presence. We need your wisdom. Lord, I think about the ex-mayor, Joe Marzette of Burkeville. He has said many times the next World War won't be about oil, but it'll be about water. And Father, we know that it's important. It's very important to all of us. And we know you are the creator of this. And we just ask you to be with us and guide us. And we ask all these things in Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Chair, I don't have a microphone.
All good?
You expect
I was hoping you said I
you planning on saying something?
Sorry about that.
You're fine. Tonight's meeting is a board work session in which we'll continue our consideration of two boundary line adjustment requests, one from the town of Burkeville and one from the town of Crewe. Relative to these requests, we'll also be considering information about the provision of a water supply to the western end of the Nottoway County, including to 3 state facilities that would be located inside of the boundary line adjustments. This issue is important to the county, to the towns, and to the state facilities. Orderly and respectful discussions tonight will help ensure that we leave here better prepared to make an informed decision when the time comes. We're pleased that Joe D'Amico, Director of Virginia Department of General Services, is here with us tonight. Mr. D'Amico, welcome. We appreciate your taking the time to be with us, and we look forward to learning more about the state's position on this matter and about the factors that support your position.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Board members, my name is Joe D'Amico, Director for the Virginia Department of General Services. Thank you for having us today and talking a little bit about what it is that the General Assembly has directed DGS to take a look at as it relates to the water needs of 3 state facilities in Nottoway County. It's been about 2 years now where an issue was presented to the Department of General Services related to long-term reliable water source for 3 state facilities in Nottoway County. It was identified to us through 2 reports, one that was prepared by the town of Crewe and one that was prepared by the Department of Behavioral Health, that the current water supply from the town of Crewe would not be a reliable source of water for a long-term solution for those facilities. And that it was brought to the state's attention that we should be looking for how we're going to address that for our facilities. DGS, within the Department of General Services, is the Division of Engineering and Buildings, where we have architects and engineers that took a look at this issue, and we developed some options to consider and developed a estimated cost for those options that we presented to the General Assembly in the 2021 session, or 2020 session of the General Assembly. There was authorization language in the Appropriations Act that directed DGS to develop a long-term solution for primarily resolving the issue for the state facility, but the language also included us to give consideration to the current infrastructure, the water infrastructure that was servicing the facilities, to see how we could incorporate that into our overall solution. The language did end with the director having the authority, though, to make a determination that other options could be selected based upon the final cost and the overall benefit to the state facilities. That being that we weren't wedded to the current infrastructure, but there is an interest not only at the state level but the DGS level to take a look at the current infrastructure and how that plays into the solution. So that's where we are today in the authority and the direction that's been given to DGS by the General Assembly to take a look at this long-term need at the 3 state facilities. We've spent the better part of the last year talking with and discussing with the town of Crewe, as well as we engaged Blackstone, and we have engaged Prince Edward County and looking at different options for the, again, the long-term solution. We are going to be taking a deeper dive with the Prince Edward County group starting tomorrow to take a look at what options may be presented there. It's my understanding that they received a unsolicited proposal for a solution coming from the Sandy River Reservoir. We will be participating with Prince Edward and taking a look at that option along with the town of Crewe and how all that fits together. This is not an overnight fix. I'm not here to give you any answers because I don't have any answers to what the solution may be. We're just getting started. There's a lot of conversation to be had at the state level with DGS, with the owners of the facilities, that being the Department of Behavioral Health, excuse me, and the Department of Corrections, as well as the local governments that are in the area that would be affected by any solution that is developed from the efforts that DGS and the localities come up with. So, Madam Chair, I'm happy to answer any questions that you or the board members may have. Thank
you. Mr. Bowen, do you have any questions for Mr. D'Amico?
I don't know, and I get it, because he's not going to have the answers tonight. And now that y'all give me a microphone, I think I'm talking too loud. But anyhow, the what I was wondering, you know, looking at the construction clock, whatever happens, like we decide, if it's decided to go to Sandy River Reservoir, and of course you got to have a water plant, so that's probably be, wouldn't that, Joe, I mean, you're an engineer, wouldn't that be like 5 or 10 years down the road probably before that would even be come to be built? You see what I'm saying? Because you got to go through the design and all that and run the pipe and all that. Just wondering, what's your thought on that?
Yeah, I don't think it's a 10-year
okay.
effort. You know, 5 years, you know, it depends. I mean, we still have, again, I need to go back. There's still a lot of discussion to be had. We don't even know what the, you know, what the run would look like, how it would look, who would take responsibility to build it. That impacts time on all this. Sir, I understand your question and the need to know from a timing standpoint, and that's where our meetings that start tomorrow with all of the players that are involved, that's when we start drilling into the actual infrastructure needs. What are they? And that's based upon what the demand's going to be from the water treatment plant that is being considered to be developed at Sandy River. You know, who are going to be the customers? Then you size it, figure out the size, and then you got to figure out the engineering of it. But I just don't know. Don't have a good answer for you right now.
Yeah, I get it.
We don't internally when we looked at this, just like I said, DGS and our Division of Engineering and Buildings, wherever we were going to go, it was not a 10-year fix. We don't believe that we have 10 years for the facilities that we're responsible to ensure the long-term solution. We've been working around a 5-year horizon from start to finish to have the long-term solution in place.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Simmons, do you have any questions?
I just have one. You said that you had spoken to the town of Crewe and you all had discussed this in the past, the problem with the water.
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair. Yes, ma'am. We have talked with the town of Crew. We've had a number of conversations with Crew over the past year about their infrastructure and their support to our facilities in Nottoway County. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Vaughn, do you have any questions or comments?
No, my concern was the timeline, but, and I would say, just out loud, that you don't have 10 years, Steve. You don't have 10 years. You're talking about 3 to 5 years at best in my estimation. But
Mr. Rourke?
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair. Thank you. I've got several questions here, and I understand you said you don't have some answers to these, but I'll ask them nonetheless, and if you can enlighten in any way, shape, or form, I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Is DGS paying any portion of the water treatment plant to be built in Prince Edward?
Not at this time. No, sir.
Okay. Why did DGS pull away from the Blackstone option?
As I said, as I opened up, we're looking at a number of options. And as we had our discussions with Blackstone and some of the initial information that was provided to us caused us to make a decision to consider other options. And so that's the position that we're in today, is looking at other options.
Okay, I understand, but you're saying there were certain things that caused you to pull away to look at other options. What was those concerns?
They're financial.
Financial?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is DGS in possession of, or even aware of, a 2010 Draper-Ayton study performed on Sandy River?
I am not aware of a 2010 study on Sandy River. My team may be.
Okay.
No, sir.
And the reason, if anybody's interested in that, I have not completed reading it, but it's definitely something that should be looked at.
That'd be very helpful, sir, if we could get a copy of that.
Okay. All right. Can Nottoway County put a tax on utilities being sold in the county from outside sources?
I don't know the answer to that, sir.
Okay. Were you present at the very beginning of this process when it was said that DGS would run the line from Blackstone to the state facilities and completely bypass the town of Crew as a means of retribution because of what a former elected official from Crew said about cutting the water off to the state facilities?
I have no idea what you're talking about, sir.
Okay. So you're unaware that that statement was even made?
I have no idea what you're talking about, sir.
Okay. Okay, and would Nottoway get any revenue sharing on this project?
I have no idea at this time, sir. There's a lot of discussion to be had with the localities on how we would look about constructing the relationships with the state and the localities involved.
Okay. All right, because, you know, I mean, you're going to run a water line that cuts out Crew's water sale. It'll eliminate jobs for the town. The cost will be a huge additional expense to every household in the town of Crew. A minimum of $500 per household of current yearly salary is lost. There'll be increased business costs to pass on to its customers in the town. This potentially will create an issue to the business owners of whether or not to close or remain open with higher prices and loss of customers. Some homes in Crew will feel the impacts of loss to yearly household income of well over $1,000. So I'm saying you want to sell here, impact jobs, and affect household revenue, then somebody needs to be sending some revenue sharing checks to offset every penny.
My response to that, sir, is DGS has never said that we were going to bypass the town of Crew. I don't know where that idea has come from.
Okay.
But that is not an accurate reflection of where DGS's position is on this. I'll say again, Madam Chair, that there is still a lot of discussion to be had with the state and the localities that are involved with this project.
John, are you finished?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Have you all considered a regional authority to, and I'm talking about Prince Edward, Nottoway, and Amelia. I'm not talking about a countywide. We did the countywide some years ago, and only one precinct voted to formed this water authority, and that was the town of Crew at that time. But I'm thinking about a regional, the counties getting together, Amelia, Nottoway, probably Lunenburg, and Nottoway.
I think that's a great question, sir. With regard to an authority, DGS would not be in a position to.
Right,
to
I'm
do
aware of that.
But I think there was some discussion early on and whether or not the localities wanted to take a look at that option. And it just hasn't been presented to DGS as an option going forward.
Okay.
Mr. D'Amico, if I may, I know you said you'd moved away from negotiations with Blackstone because of financial reasons. Are you still open to sitting down at the table with Blackstone if there's room for negotiation there?
Madam Chair, all options are on the table.
Okay.
Even our discussions with Prince Edward, which are starting anew tomorrow, we'll have to see where they land on the financial side. It's always been made very clear to all of the localities involved in this that we have options for this solution and that we will explore all options.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. D'Amico from the board?
No, ma'am.
No.
Okay. Mr. D'Amico, thank you for your time tonight.
Madam Chair, thank you. Board members, thank you for having me today.
Yes, Lynn,
I don't think this gentleman is going to be back for citizens asking questions in another meeting.
Excuse me, this is a board work session. It's not a forum for public comment. I'm sorry, but thank you. Please refrain.
This is the only time for the public to engage and ask this man a question, though. Can I at least just say one question?
Madam Chair,
no.
stick with the rules if you don't
Not
mind.
tonight. This is a
Stick with the
board work
rules.
session.
We've been in court about the rules, so let's stick with the rules.
Jumping here with lies and wants to carry this county.
That's enough. Stop.
Take his facility to get the hell out of here.
I'll ask you to leave if you have another outburst. Okay.
Citizens should have a right to gaze at him. You got neighbor against neighbor here.
he needs to go.
All right, and as I understand, we have the Virginia Department of Transportation on the agenda. No one from the department is here tonight, is that correct?
Shut the building down and move to Prince Edward.
Madam Chair, may I ask?
Paige, you need to leave, please. Please leave the meeting.
Public should be involved with this.
Madam Chair, I strongly, with that type of language, and we're representing, we have children in this county. I'd like to be thinking about, is it possible we can talk to the sheriff and that gentleman will not be allowed in this meeting again with that type of behavior?
I think it's something we should follow up
Okay.
on.
I'm having enough of it.
Madam Chairman, honorable members of the board, I will follow up on that. To the Virginia Department of Transportation, they were invited. They were unable to send a designee tonight. The issue that I would have had them address was the issue of, which was one of the early issues in the boundary line adjustment question, had to do with the population and how if Crew was able to expand and pick up this population, they would be in a position that they could better manage their own road network. There seems to be some question, as the board knows, having just gone.
Excuse me before y'all go forward. I just want to make sure they were okay when they left here, because Mr. Page left out behind them.
Okay, I can, can you?
Can you call the sheriff's office?
You
Yeah.
and Greg check on that, and you call the sheriff's office. If it's something going on outside, call the sheriff's office.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Not a problem, I mean, I understand. So the question was, early on in the process, was the concern about the road maintenance and Crew, and there was a numbers issue. If you're over 3,500, you can do your own roads. Actually, what I've learned from VDOT is, and this was my experience in Elkton, we did our own roads and we were less than 3,500. It's an option. You just have to do it if you're over 3,500. And that's the information I got from VDOT. Now, the other piece that I got from VDOT, which the board is familiar with, having gone through the redistricting issue, is how do the prisoners count? VDOT is of the opinion the prisoners don't count. So any population gain from the prison, you have to deduct out all those prisoners who are there having been incarcerated from a sentence in some other Virginia jurisdiction. You all are familiar with that, having gone through this recently with redistricting. That was essentially what I was hoping that they would be able to present. I have the information in an email. I'll share that with you. I'm just sorry that no one could speak directly, because I'm trying to maintain some objectivity here.
Great, thank you very much.
If you don't mind, I want to step outside as well.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
All right, the next two items on our agenda include a presentation by the town of Burkeville, followed by a presentation by the town of Crewe. Both towns previously provided presentations at our January 26th board meeting. Tonight, each of you will have the opportunity to reiterate your position as previously presented and/or provide new information that you'd like for our board to consider. Then we'll follow each of your presentations with a period for board comments and questions. We'll start with the town of Burkeville.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Dan Mullen, and I'm joined with Mayor Brian Welch from the town of Burkeville. I won't reiterate everything that we had talked about previously. It was such a short time ago, I'm sure that you recall. One of the things that occurs to me as I listen to the conversation and try to conceptualize it at the high level is that occasionally, instead of trying to divide up smaller pieces of an existing pie, especially when that pie includes things like jobs, economic opportunities, economic development. I was pleased to hear about some comments secondhand that Mr. Rourke had made following the VACO meeting about economic development, the importance of that. To think about growing the size of that pie instead of dividing up smaller pieces. One idea that was advanced is that if all towns were to be made equal, that you consider a boundary line adjustment that accounts for the town of Burkeville, the town of Crewe, and the town of Blackstone all having roughly the same size by population and geography. Otherwise, it's fair to say that somebody may feel, at least, that they've come away a winner or a loser with a smaller piece of that pie. Now, my client is the town of Burkeville, and for that reason, I wanted to explain some things that I hadn't really covered before, although I think were covered by other speakers. But the net impact to the town of Burkeville, aside from the other items that we discussed in the previous meeting, is a loss of about 1/3 of the annual EMS revenue recovery if, in fact, the boundary line adjustment were to be granted in favor of Crewe and against Burkeville. The loss of the fire department response area, you had a speaker previously, and I couldn't do a better job than he did of describing the devastating impact that would have on fire services. The loss of a full-time post office and their hours and their services because of the loss of those customers that are currently served. I do agree with Mr. Costin and his assessment that even if there were some small number of citizens that would be captured to the benefit of Crewe, that number is likely very, very small. I do not know what that number is tonight, but I do know that it's certainly smaller. It's just a small subsection of whatever that population is. But the net impact, the negative impact to Burkeville isn't small. It's large. So the loss of the full-time post office hours and services, there'd be a loss of about 14 out-of-town water and trash customers. And the truth is, Burkeville understands, and we've talked about this at length, if you are to build economic development areas and engines, you have the 360-460 corridor, you certainly have the town of Blackstone, you have Fort Pickett, and you also have Crewe about right in the middle of all of that. You will need redundancy, at least. You will need more than one source of water over the next 50-year period. That I can almost guarantee. Certainly Burkeville is supplied currently by wells. I do not think that in the long term that's the best plan. Sometimes it's the second best plan. I've been in that position myself, working towards economic development and trying to grow populations, grow businesses, and also grow the infrastructure at about the same rate so that one never outruns the other, because that can put you in a difficult situation on either one of those three corners of that three-legged stool. Burkeville is eager to engage in a cooperative and a positive way to figure out how best to work with Nottoway County, with its sister towns, Blackstone and Crew, in order to grow that pie to the maximum benefit of all. I'm certainly open to discuss this and to talk about any questions. I know it's a work session. It feels a little more formal since we're all on the other side of a podium, but certainly happy to work with you in a way that's positive, in a way that's productive, in a way that's professional, and a way that's proven to work. One other thing that occurred to me, and I looked into it, I happen to have the good fortune to represent several water and wastewater authorities around the state, and even the Virginia Water and Wastewater Authorities Act, everybody who is a member of that and have water and wastewater systems. So I looked around at plants, water plants specifically, that are similarly sized, and I was happy to find one in Louisa, where I was fortunate enough to serve. Looked about the same size. And as I dug in behind the budget and verified a few things, it looks like that even if there were some offset of revenue to the town of Crew, and I don't pretend to know their business, I don't, but I do think it needs to be considered, that there would also be an equal, almost equal, I estimate town of Louisa about the same size, about $600,000 a year, in just operation and maintenance, to say nothing of capital improvements that are necessary to maintain a water plant that, as I understand it, I wasn't born quite then, but around 1930, there's an enormous amount of cost. So if there does seem to be a loss of revenue, there may also be recognized perhaps an equal, maybe even better. Again, I don't know. But these are things to consider so that everyone can grow a bigger opportunity for all of the people who work and live and play in Nottoway County. Any questions?
Ms. Simmons, do you have any questions?
No.
Mr. Vaughn?
No, not at this point.
Mr. Rourke?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. What is Burkeville's current water usage rates?
What are they, Mayor?
$23 for the first 2,500, and it's $4 per thousand beyond that. That's the in-town rate. The out-of-town rate's $34.50. First 2,500, $4 per thousand.
Okay. All right. What does Burkeville intend to do for economic development if they get the boundary line adjustment?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing is more or less protecting the current infrastructure as far as post office, fire department, et cetera. It's not like you can get a whole lot of economic gain out of taking the prison population. I mean, Mr. Cossins already covered that. There's no economic gain by taking a bunch of prisoners.
Okay.
You're not gonna be able to build any factories or anything there, but as far as making our, kind of securing our town is where it's at.
Okay.
Eventually, I would foresee, with additional supply of water, growth along the 360, 460 corridor. I mean, I think that's pretty much what everybody in the county is looking for. We all want more jobs, we all want more qualified jobs and more people in the community. I don't think that there's anybody, I'm not gonna speak on behalf of Crew, but I would tend to think Crew and Mayor Colburn would feel the same way, that we're not looking at trying to choke out each other.
Right.
We're just trying to fight for what's rightfully ours, or what we feel is rightfully ours, I should say.
Right. Is there any paperwork from the Postmaster General stating that they will close the post office if Crew moves forward with the boundary line adjustment as presented?
So the problem with the post office is not gonna write up anything in black and white. Their thought process is if that changes zip codes, the mail's gonna go to Crew and the mail leases are gonna drop. They don't count by address, they count by the letter piece. And it's in the thousands. They can't give you what the total day-to-day is, but they estimate in the thousands per day.
Okay. All right. Has Burkeville been promised any form of assistance from the state, the Timmons Group, Prince Edward, or any other outside entity for their support on this project?
The first contact I had with state DGS, the only promise I was given was they can offer me a valve at the edge of my town. I mean, for what that's worth, I mean, and how much of a promise that is, I would assume if you're gonna lay a pipeline through my town limits, it might be nice to offer me a tap to it.
That's right. So
But
there,
it wasn't like a free tap, it was, we'll put a valve there if you want it.
I understand.
They've never promised me, to my knowledge, I'm the only one who's directly talked to DGS on the town level unless Mr. Bullen has.
Right. So there was no quid pro quo in this for Burkeville from Prince Edward or the Timmons Group then?
No, sir. In fact, they can't even honestly tell me where the line's gonna run, because you're gonna run along the bound, run the bypass, because it's gonna come straight down my North Second Street, which I consider Main Street through town. They don't know where it's going. They don't know when it's coming, and they don't know which route they're going.
Okay.
I have no promises. I'm hanging out here in the dark. They've had meetings with the other two towns, and the first phone call I got was December 9th of 2021, almost a year after I took office.
Okay. Mr. Mullen, who all do you or your firm represent in this matter?
I represent the town of Burkeville. I thought I said that at the beginning.
I mean, you don't represent Timmons Group or Prince Edward in any shape or form in this matter?
I have one client, the town of Burkeville.
Okay. Is Burkeville paying your fees or your firm's fees?
I certainly hope they will.
All right. Does your involvement in any way, shape, or form have anything to do with Prince Edward's future plans to provide water to a data center?
Wow, that's a great question. I'd like to know if it did, but I have no idea that it does.
Okay. Does Prince Edward coming into Nottoway poaching revenue from our towns see this as a means to offset construction of their water lines and treatment facility?
I'm not sure I understand the question, sir.
Okay. No, that's fine. That you don't. That's fine. No, that's fine. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Bowen?
This is more, I guess, a question. First of all, let me make a comment first. Mayor Welch, you came in behind a mayor for 18 and a half years, and you've had a tough go at it coming out the gate. And I kind of sometimes I look at things and how things kind of unfolded and unpacked. The request came first from Crew for a boundary line adjustment, and I feel like Burkeville reacted to that. And I feel like, and I want you to see I just want to see if you agree with my observation, Mayor Welch. You've lost the school. If you lose the post office and you lose the fire department, you lose your town. Is that a fair statement?
That'd be fair.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Mayor Welch, Mr. Mullen, thank you very much. Town of Crew?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
And I'm joined today by Councilman Davis and Mr. Thrower, our town manager. I wanted to begin by just clarifying a couple points that were made earlier, beginning with a point made by Mr. Costin about the VDOT revenue. Section 33.2-319 of the Code of Virginia is very clear on the issue. It says funds allocated to urban highways in 1, all towns that have a population of, this is referring to VDOT funds coming into localities. Population more than 3,500 according to the last preceding United States Census. So that is any locality that has a population 3,500 or over. 2, all towns that, according to evidence satisfactory to the board, have attained a population more than 3,500 since the last preceding United States Census, which means that any locality that has previously had 3,500 won't necessarily drop funds. 3, and it lists specific localities that were added to the section of the Code of Virginia: Chase City, Elkton, which Mr. Costner refers to, Grottoes, Narrows, Pearisburg, and Saltville, which or June 30th, 1985, maintained certain streets under former 33.2-80 as then in effect. So basically, those localities already were maintaining the streets before this code change. and 4, all cities regardless of their population. And then the towns of Alta Vista, Dublin, Lebanon, and Wise. So basically what that says is that all cities, regardless of their population, can maintain their streets, and specific towns that already were grandfathered into the code. And I'll give that to Mr. Costin for his review, but our point still remains. The town of Crewe is a town, not a city. And we are currently under 3,500 in population. We would need the boundary line adjustment in order to maintain our own roads per the Code of Virginia. The second thing I wanted to bring up was the issue of the post office. There is no evidence to suggest that the loss of 3 customers on a rural route, no matter how large they are, would have any influence on whether or not the U.S. Postal Service maintains a full post office in an urban center like the town of Burkeville. We need to remember several key facts. 1, zip code and post office designations are determined entirely by the U.S. Postal Service based entirely on business factors. Municipal boundaries do not play a role in those decisions. 2, the Burkeville Post Office serves 844 residential mailboxes, 25 business mailboxes, and 164 post office boxes for a total of 1,033 total mailboxes. The 3 state facilities each count as 1 mailbox apiece, or combined less than 1/3 of 1% of the total route stops. 3, post offices are not like private businesses, where if they shut down, they can just forget about their customers. If a post office were to close, the neighboring post office would need to absorb all the business left behind, including new routes throughout the 23922 zip code. The nearest post office, Crewe and Nottoway, don't have the capacity for doing that. The fear that Burkeville Post Office would shut down if the state facilities were incorporated into the town of Crewe is, we believe, a red herring. No USPS official has publicly made any indication or even the possibility of that occurring. No evidence has been given to the board that the facilities, which are not in the town of Burkeville, the state facilities, which are not in the town of Burkeville, becoming part of the town of Crewe would in any way impact the way the USPS treats the facilities, nor has any data been provided to the board to show the business impact to the Burkeville Post Office, even if they stopped servicing the facilities. So that's on the post office. I also wanted to go ahead and clear up any misconception. The town of Crewe's position is that we are not trying to block anything. If DGS wants to work with the town of Crewe and source water from Prince Edward County, from the town of Blackstone, we are willing to go whatever direction. If they say you need to shut down your plant and go with a regional solution, we're willing to engage in those conversations. We're not trying to block anything like that. The town of Crewe was founded in 1888, as you know, as a railroad town. We were founded as a halfway point between Norfolk and Roanoke, basically a stop between 2 economic powerhouses. In terms of economic development, it has never been in our interests to derail anything. Our history is based on keeping projects on track and on time, and we just want a seat on board as we move forward down the tracks of progress. Sorry for the puns. Just to reiterate our bottom line from the last meeting, and then I'll open up to questions. The bottom line is this. From the first mention of the boundary line adjustment, Crewe's sole focus has been on 2 goals. 1, to bring the town of Crewe's population over 3,500 in order to trigger town ownership of secondary roads, and 2, to provide for transformative regional water partnerships while protecting the town's financial future. Let me say that again. To provide for transformative regional water partnerships while protecting the town's financial future. We want to engage in regional partnerships, but we want to do so in a way that protects the town. We want to be good partners to find a solution that benefits everyone. We know that the future of Crewe and Nottoway County lies in collaboration, cooperation, and regionalization. We want to do whatever we can to pave the way for economic growth for Western Nottoway County and beyond, but in a manner responsible to the financial needs of the people of Crewe. As we suggested in our first presentation on March 9th last year, this BLA allows for all regional partners to continue discussions on water partnerships while at the same time protecting the interests of Crewe and all of our water customers. It also allows us to have more control over the maintenance of roads and sidewalks in town limits. That's all we're asking for, and we hope that the board moves forward with our boundary line adjustment. And I'll turn it over to anyone else from the town who has anything to say.
Well, I'm not gonna use as many big words as the attorney did. I'm not gonna use as many big words as my buddy Phil just did. I'm gonna state a number for you. 1.2 million. That's how many reasons the town of Crewe has to want to move forward with this. 1.2 million. Brian, what's our budget annually?
Total around 5 million.
Okay. 20%. Is that a good number? 20%? 20% of the income between the VDOT monies that could be available and the loss of the sale of water to the facilities is 20% of our operating budget. And somewhere along the way, and I'm still not sure where it started, there's all this noise about us wanting to hurt Burkeville or hurt Blackstone. I would love nothing better than to see Burkeville open up the biggest industrial park that we've ever seen somewhere around Dutchtown Road and bring in all the industry that this county can hold, all the jobs, all the tax base, everything we can do. Because, folks, we got a lot of work to do in this county. I said last time, I'm going to say it again tonight, we have no reason to want to hurt anybody else. Where I've become confused in this situation is why the town of Crewe should be willing to get beat up, to lose our ability to fund our police department, to lose our ability to fund our street department, to lose our ability to our rec department, to lose our ability to pay for everything that the town of Crewe does for its people. But it's okay for everyone else to put high-dollar attorneys up here and chat with you guys about things that don't even exist. You haven't been presented a thing from the United States Post Office that says you're going to lose a post office. I don't believe it exists. My research and reading with the U.S. Post Office says that won't happen. Now, as Mr. Bowen so eloquently pointed out, who am I? I don't know a whole lot about anything. I do know this. I'm smart enough to use a computer. I'm smart enough to use Google. I find it very telling that of all the people in this room, the ones that left, and I think you noticed it, are the shifty ones in the group. They didn't stay here, as Mr. Page wrongly stated. They didn't stay here to answer any questions. They didn't stay here. I was under the impression that this was going to be some sort of roundtable where us and our partners in Burkeville and our EMS folks in the county, I talked to you last week, told you point blank, what did I tell you, Mr. Clark? I have absolutely no desire to do anything as a councilman in the town of Crewe that would hurt Burkeville Fire Department. And if there's ever any way that the town of Crewe in any form or fashion can help them, we'll be more than happy to do it. It is a fallacy for this gentleman to stand up here. He ain't from here. He doesn't know us. He doesn't know our relationships. Steve, you and I go back 25 years in ball. Do you honestly believe for 1 minute that I would do anything to hurt Spike Zumbro or Brian Welch or the Bruces? Come on, guys. We're all smarter than that. The only people in this mix who left are the people who stood right here in front of you and lied to you. I have emails from Mr. Porras, who was sitting right there with his boss, that said, we are no longer interested in doing business with the town of Crewe. We're going to buy water directly from Prince Edward. I got it, Billy got it, Brian got it, Phil got it, the other Phil's got it. It took everything I could to sit here as a homegrown person of this county and listen to this guy come up here and sell you a line of wolf tickets, in the middle words of Mr. Lesroy. It's a joke. They have given us in writing their intent to buy water directly from Prince Edward County. Now, I don't know where you come from, but if you're buying it from that end of the county and it's not coming through Crewe, you're sidetracking the town of Crewe. He's talked about how often he's been in communication with us. That's the first time I've laid eyes on Chris Porras or Joe D'Amico since this started, and I've been sitting in this seat since July 1st of 2020. We asked for a meeting with them. Well, no, we don't have anything to talk about yet. Same thing he just told you. We don't have anything to talk about. There's nothing to share with you guys because we don't know anything yet. They know enough that they want to buy water from Prince Edward. They know enough that they're willing. Now, I get DGS. DGS has one job. DGS's job is to get and maintain water for the state facilities. They don't care about the economic impact. They don't care about, let's face it, the political impact. They don't care about what that's going to do to all of our constituents in our town. They don't care about that. They care about getting water for $8 or $9 per thousand. We have it in writing in emails that they're basically the reason they didn't want to deal with Blackstone was because Blackstone's rate was too high. But economics, let's call it a spade. Their rate was too high. Were we going to negotiate on it? Nope. Guess who wasn't involved in any of those conversations, folks? You're all friends of mine. I've known you for years. Guess who was not involved in any of those conversations? Any of them. He stood here and told you he's been in contact and had many discussions with the town of Crew. Never met him. So I still fail to believe that their ultimate goal is not to go directly to Prince Edward. Our attorney is here. Excuse me. He has looked into it, and there is definitely support in the code section that says that a municipality or a utility provider cannot sell that utility across governmental boundaries without that entity's permission. So we're either going to have to rely on you guys to tell them no, or we're going to have those boundary lines so that we can tell them no. Now let's set that all aside. Phil also read the code section. The fact is over 3,500, that is, what did we say, 600,000, Brian? $650,000? Let me ask y'all a question. What's your annual budget, Ms. Shackleton, for Nottoway County?
This is your presentation. We're not engaging the board, so go ahead.
What, somebody walks in and looks at you guys and says, you know what? We're going to cut your budget by 25% for no reason at all. And then he proceeds to tell you, and you're not going to have anything to say about it because we're going to deal with this municipality over here. And we don't need you anymore. 25%, Mr. Vaughn. That's support for your schools. That's support for your folks that work at the landfill. That's support for your facility here. What would your reaction be? And then he proceeds to not talk to you for a year. We get information from Blackstone. Ben Orbick is talking to us all the time. We know what's going on. You know who won't talk to us or hasn't talked to us since all this started? Unfortunately, it's been the town of Burkeville. I got buddies on that town council. I still don't understand to this day how it is we're standing here having this discussion. Why we're not partnered up going, you know what? If you want to come into our county, you got to make good for everybody. So I'm going to make it clear one last time. I hope you get your water supply. I hope that you get industrial development. I hope that you bring business, millions of dollars of business in this county so that the schools and EMS and everybody else can benefit for it. I want to make it for the record. I have no intention of hurting the town of Burkeville, but I also don't intend to lay by quietly and watch you guys make the decision for us. Watch Senator Blackstone make the decision for us. Make the town of Burkeville, have the town of Burkeville make the decision for us. I'm certainly not going to let Prince Edward County make that decision for us without doing everything that we can do within our power to protect the 2,200 people that we're charged with looking out for. Your district, Mr. Vaughn, you look out for them, don't you? That's not a question you have to answer. We all know the answer to that question. Mr. Bowen has made it painfully obvious that he's going to look out for the folks in Burkeville. There again, where are we at? We have facts. The facts have still not been disproven. Rumor and innuendo ain't going to get you guys where you need to be. And the only people that could accurately answer any of the questions just got up and left after blowing smoke at you guys for 20 minutes. I don't know how you feel about that, but I think everybody else in here kind of saw it was pretty clear. So I appreciate your time tonight. I look forward to further discussions. If you guys can get us all somewhere less formal, where we're not having to stand at a microphone and make a presentation, where Brian Welch and Spike Zumbro and the folks in Burkeville and us can all get at a big table somewhere like we did at the Officers Club over a year ago and work this out, I'm all for it. I hope that that's what can happen. If you want to deal with facts, the town of Crew has the facts. We have the studies. We have the estimates. We've actually talked to VDOT. We've actually talked to everybody involved in how this is going to impact us. And this is the only group that's allowed us to actually be involved in the conversation. So for that, I thank you guys. But please, if you get ready to go to consideration with this with no further meeting than where we are now, Keep it in your mind that there are 2,200 people in the town of Crewe whose water bills will go up 50%. My mother is 74 years old. Okay? Thank
Thank
you all
you,
for your
Mr.
time.
Davis.
I really appreciate it.
Mr. Vaughn, do you have any questions for Crew?
Mr. Bowen alluded to it, but I've wondered why Crew did not bring Burkeville in on the discussions before it got to where it is now.
You would probably need to ask the past administration, who somehow also saw fit to not be friends with DBHDS and not be friends with DOC or DGS or anybody else. I can't answer for what the former mayor and other town council members did. I was made aware of it shortly before I took the seat. I've had discussions with fellow council members in Burkeville, or a fellow council member in Burkeville, and we talked to them about trying to work together. We're stronger together than we are apart. That includes you guys. I don't know what happened in 2014 when this all started. This started in 2014. So I can't answer your question, Mr. Vaughn. I would love to sit down at a table with the folks up there. We don't want to hurt them. Come on.
Okay.
Together, we're stronger than we are apart. Certainly, between the Board of Supervisors, Town of Blackstone, Town of Crewe, and the Town of Burkeville, we can look at Prince Edward and say,
Okay, thank you.
To answer the I need to set up a jar and put a quarter in for every time someone breaks that. To answer the question more directly, the town of Crewe, I believe it was March 9th of last year, came to the Board of Supervisors with a request for a boundary line adjustment. A boundary line adjustment is a agreement between two parties, and at the time it was the town of Crewe and the Board of Supervisors. The Board of Supervisors delayed the discussion, didn't want to discuss it at the time. We would have certainly started engaging with stakeholders in other stakeholders who have some interest in the boundary line, but at the time, it would be, in my opinion, inappropriate to start going behind the board's back and talking to stakeholders without first getting some sort of indication of interest from the board. If you recall, at the time, the board ended the discussion pretty abruptly. I guess it didn't quite fit on what was included on the agenda. So there was no and then we kept. I know we approached the county several times after that to try to get the board to discuss the issue, and there were several other things on the county's plate, hiring a new county administrator and all of that. So it was it just never happened. So basically, we wanted some indication from the county on moving forward on once, or at least some interest before we started talking to other stakeholders. At least from my perspective.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr. Rourke, do you have any questions for Crew?
Yes, ma'am. I want to go back to a question that actually Ms. Simmons had asked earlier, and I recognized the immediate response from the town of Crewe officials when it was stated, and something that you said, and it's very concerning. Are y'all saying that they've never reached out to y'all and had those conversations as Mr. D'Amico stood here and said?
There have been email conversations, and I'm sure that Brian, as town manager, has probably talked with their staff directly. We requested a meeting like this with that group of individuals months ago, and we were told that there was no reason to meet with the town of Crewe. I got the email.
Okay.
That there was nothing, just like he told you tonight, there was nothing to talk about. There was no specifics to discuss. I find that very hard to believe, but it's their show. So we have never sat down as a council and had a meeting with DGS or any of the other stakeholders.
All right, and just for clarification purpose, some items that y'all pointed out. Number one, the post office looks at those three facilities as the loss of only 3 mailboxes. Is that correct?
That is our understanding.
That's our understanding. I did want to just clarify the issue about meeting with DGS. Council as a whole has never met with DGS. Brian and I have met with DGS, but in a way to receive information rather than, so Chapter 552, which is of the budget, which is the code section that specifies that DGS is going to be looking at this issue, specifies that the town of Crew, DOC, DGS, and DBHDS will be participants in this process. I take that as being active participants. DGS has given us information and requested information from us, but we have not been active part of the process. DGS has not met with the town of Crew as a whole, but they have in fact met with Mr. Thrower. So I did just want to clarify that.
Okay. And where y'all were spoke on the mail capacity, the Crew's post office is not capable of taking on Burkeville's load, so the post office in Burkeville should remain.
We're not with the United States Postal Service, Mr. Chairman. We don't have a way to answer that question.
Right.
Okay. All right, then, as I understand from talking to Fire Chief, myself, and you guys, some of the council members, and Mr. Thrower and Mr. Miskovic, an MOU has always been an option for the fire departments to continue their first due in Burkeville to those state facilities.
Let me be clear, the town of Crew and our fire department has absolutely no desire to be the answering agency at any of those facilities. Town of Burkeville is more than happy to carry it. We'll draw up between our attorneys and their attorneys, whatever they want to do. We have no desire, our fire department doesn't want it,
Correct.
so.
Right, and that's something handled best at the county level. That would be a good public administration practice.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Bowen?
I want to clarify something with Mayor, Mr. Vicker, if we could, unless this gentleman wants to speak, I'm okay to yield to him.
This is Eric Gregory, our town attorney.
Okay, so the first time that you get bored, you tell me if I'm right. We were up here for another situation. Brian Thrower came in, and it was not on the agenda, so that's why we didn't take any action. But he did give us a spiel, and I basically had a little drawing that we had, and I still got the drawing. So I just want to clarify. That's why it's not that we ignore you, we don't care about you, but it wasn't on the agenda, and it sprung on us. Okay, and I don't like surprises.
I believe it was listed as water issue, but then we brought up a boundary line adjustment, which is tangentially related, but I understand your point.
Okay.
Can I address this question, because this comes up a lot. So when John Procyse was still here, I go, my normal practice in other localities, same I do with Philip or Ted, we go to administrator. I'm not gonna come and seek out you to ask you a question. I'm gonna go through your county administrator, I'm gonna go through your town manager, the correct way. That's proper protocol. So when John was here, because Ronnie, I believe, had already left, I tried to have a meeting with him in person. We exchanged emails. I wanted to talk about this matter with him to see how about we could go about coordinating this administratively. And he needs to come up with a process to bring that to you, since he reports to the board. After not getting a whole lot of headway that way through John, I think it may have been the Friday before or something, he said, oh, by the way, okay, we've got some kind of meeting come up underwater, why don't you come and present this request? That's not up to me to determine how to present a request to y'all. I was just trying to work through y'all's system to bring you a matter. That's up to your administrator, John at the time, and y'all to figure out. I'm just trying to present the request, and that's the way I was told to present it to y'all at the time. That probably was not the best way, but I don't control y'all's process. So, thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
All right. So now let me get down to I think Sean really hit it. You know, there's a different administration here, but Steve Bowen has spent 3 years of his life in meetings on projects, and I do know what happened, and I got to ask you a question. So here's what happened, and it was the previous administration. I get that. The state, DBHDS, Billy, not the state. DBHDS built a water tank, 600,000 gallons, on the other side of the road. Okay, they put
and I say the other side of the road, now, so town managers know this, that tank is not on the meter side of the owner, it's on the town of Crew side, okay? So they built this tank, $1.2 million, so Crew could have pressure on their end, on their western end, and they had to put pressure reducing valves in, they put a generator in, and they put pumps in, okay? I was in all that project. And the deal was that tank was going to feed 3 facilities, okay? When it was time for the Crew to take the tank over, you didn't want it. Not you, the town. The town didn't want it. So we talk about partnerships and relationships, not a good thing. I don't think that was a good relationship at that time. Because what you're saying is the state is paying for the water and we're maintaining the infrastructure of the tank, which is really the town of Crew's responsibility. So now the boundary line adjustment, you're going to take that, or you're going to take the tank too, or is the state going to have to start still owning the tank? Do you see where the partnerships are not, you use the word partnership, but is it a true partnership? That's my whole.
Can I answer that? That item has been discussed, and that's prior to me, but that's part of the town's distribution system, and if, in my opinion, that should be the town's responsibility, yes.
But somebody needs to talk to the state about it. DBH, I did it myself, and I cracked. No, that won't be me. But maybe DGS. But what I'm saying is, it's all about relationships and partnerships, and I think there was some damage done at that time. I'm just bringing that to your attention, and you probably already know that.
We understand that their past administrations and past councils have acted in certain ways, and we are here to improve relationships and to build new partnerships moving forward. And those partnerships, we hope, involve regionalization and what's best for the county as a whole.
And my comment is not I'm not speaking for DBHDS. What I'm saying is, and I don't know DGS. I don't know that group of people. That's whole new to me. And so, but I wonder if it's some relationship damage there. But I do know the state was expecting the town of Crew to take that tank. Yeah.
I would also like to make clear that there was plenty of water to go around, apparently, until DBHDS elected to build 400 more beds to their facility.
True.
And then demand more water. We're at over 80%, or at 80% capacity of our ability to make it.
Yeah, and I'll clarify that. When that tank was built, VCBR was not going to get bigger, but it did get bigger.
So that's what's really driving all this is VCBR decided to build another couple buildings that had 400 more people to the facility. That's what drove all of this to begin with. And again, I can't speak for what the previous administration. I only care about one thing, guys. Well, 2,200 things. I'm elected to look out for the best interest of the people who put me in that seat. I don't care about Steve Bowen. I don't care about John Rourke. I don't care about DBHDS. I don't care about VCBR, DOC, or anybody else. The decisions that are getting ready to get made in this county, folks, affect 2,200 people. A good percentage of which are lower socioeconomic status folks. They're elderly folks. I can afford a water bill. I don't care how much you raise it. My mom, not so much. The lady who's got a $900 rent to one of their landlords with the windows falling out the house, and then we're gonna double their water bill. This isn't about money. This isn't about a state. The Commonwealth of Virginia has all the money in the world. They can dig the biggest lake you want to out in the middle of that property and solve their own water problem. It still won't solve the problem because they're taking the money out of the town of Crew, which is going to put our people at a disadvantage. That's all I'm fighting for. And then to have these gentlemen come in here and blow smoke. Last time we heard about Blackstone's water quality, that was never an issue that I was aware of as we were discussing that. Now these folks are coming in here and they're giving you smoke, Ms. Shuckleton. He didn't directly answer a question that any of you asked. Not how much it's gonna cost, not when it's gonna get built, not who's gonna pay what, nothing. We're taking proactive actions that in no way, shape, or form, in any factual matter, hurts the town of Burkeville. And we're asking you guys to back us in that. If you don't, then we're gonna have to rely on you guys to do what's right. We're gonna have to rely on you guys to fight that fight. But we're gonna fight that fight. We got to. Just like you're gonna fight for everybody in this county, we have to. And it just blows my mind that we're even having to have this discussion. But if everybody that lives in Nottoway County is sitting in this room, having a discussion over who's gonna get what and how they're gonna get what, it should be a no-brainer. I just kinda get it. And we're gonna do what we have to do to work with anybody we have to work with to protect the folks that live in the town.
Okay. Mr. Boyd, anything else?
No, I can save us, I'll save for my last comment at the end.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Madam
Ms.
Chair.
Simmons, do you have any questions for Crew?
Steve and John kind of hit on what I wanted to ask, and it was with the communication with DGS, and they said they communicated with Crew. Did you, Mr. Mayor Miskovic, or you, Mr. Thrower, did you all share that information with your town council when you spoke to them?
We do share information whenever DGS contacts us. Which communication are you?
Our last communication from Chris Porras was that we're not going to do business with you, we're gonna do business with Prince Edward, in an email.
Because,
Is that what you consider
because of,
communication?
no.
So I'm just asking, because that's the kind of communication we got.
Sean,
Yeah.
okay.
I'm using it as an example. That's the
Um,
kind of communication we've had with them. We're gonna do this.
I'm asking the mayor if they had communication with DGS and if they relayed that message to the town council.
Yes, ma'am, we did.
Okay,
Whatever information they sent us was then relayed to town council.
okay.
Generally, it's relayed to the town manager, who shares it with both me and council at the same time.
Because I'm looking at the council, and they are saying that they didn't get any information.
May I speak on that? Okay, we were shared that they would get an email from the state saying we're working with Blackstone, they're working with them. When we asked for a meeting, we were refused the meeting.
If I can speak on the subject, as y'all know, usually your staff person has the most contact with other local or state agencies. So yes, I've been in contact with DGS continually since I've been here for 2 years and a month. So yes, I've been in contact with Chris Porras, Joe D'Amico, he's the head, but mainly Chris Porras and his staff at DGS. The council as a whole, no, because for a lot of different reasons, it becomes a public meeting, just like we are in tonight. They've had a few meetings with Phil and I and Ann Stinson in July. Anyway, yes, we've been in communication with them, just not the council as a whole. That's correct.
Not about working with us.
And now what?
Not about working with us, working with Prince Edward or working with Blackstone.
It's been told to us the direction that they want to go in all of those cases.
Correct.
We asked for this with them and got turned down. So what do you do?
Well, you all asked for a place at the table, so that's what
Yes.
we
asked for
gave
a place
you.
at the table.
And the people, though, that we needed to actually answer questions got up and left at the end of the presentation. Because it's quite clear, I have an email from Chris Porras, I have one, that says, we've elected to go with Prince Edward moving forward. Now, all of a sudden, Mr. D'Amico wants to tell you that none of those decisions have been made? That's not-
Well, first of all, it started off on the wrong foot anyway when it was presented to us. Because we weren't expecting it. It was not on the agenda, and it was presented during a work session that this was not on the agenda when Mr. Thrower presented it to us.
With all due respect, hold on, with all due respect, how does that change where we are?
It changes a lot because we ended up, I'm gonna tell you why. Because we ended up in court that next Friday because he presented that presentation, and it just shocked all of us because we weren't expecting that. We weren't expecting a boundary adjustment, and especially because it involved Bergfield.
But you had the opportunity, when Prince Edward County sent its folks here and stood right there in the middle of this room and asked for your permission to give them the right to sell water in Nottoway County. Again, if things happen like that, Ms. Simmons, I'm terribly sorry.
But nobody
Okay,
from town.
maybe we should go ahead and move forward.
But I can't
Yeah, because nobody from town council even approached and talked about this until a few weeks ago and said, you did,
I've talked to John.
and
I've
Miss,
talked to Ms. Vaughn and Lynn.
and another councilman, and Miss, and Wendy. They spoke, and,
The issue again becomes, we started this in last March. I tried to go through your county administrator at the time. He said, come after back and forth, he said, come to your board meeting. That's not up to me to decide, that's up to him to advise. And I assume.
well, we understand that. We understand what's the past administration, but what I'm saying is, which I want everybody to understand, it was wrong from the beginning. It started off wrong. You need to talk to everybody that's involved. If it's involved Burkeville, then you should have reached out to Burkeville and talked to Burke. After you had the changeover, which I know that you had a different mayor and all of that. But once you changed, then you should have sat down and talked to them and told them you wanted this boundary adjustment.
To the mayor's point here, one town requesting a boundary line adjustment from a county has nothing to do at that time, particularly with another town. So I'm not sure where that argument comes into.
Well, I disagree with that, but anyway, thank you, Ms. Shackleton.
Thank you.
If I may, our town attorney had some, just a couple comments.
Hello, my name is Eric Gregory. I'm with the law firm of Hefty, Wiley & Gore in Richmond. I'm recently appointed town attorney for Crew. Pleasure to be with you tonight. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm relatively very, very new to the whole situation. I understand a little bit of what's gone on in the past. I'm learning more and more every day, including tonight. So it's been interesting. And but I think that the boundary line adjustment that Crew is seeking could serve as a way to strengthen the region, because Crew is seeking it for the purpose of obtaining VDOT funding to improve its road and sidewalk infrastructure. That could bring in over $500,000 a year in VDOT revenue for that purpose. That would significantly benefit not only the town of Crew, but the county and also Burkeville, because they're right down the road. It could benefit the entire region. So that's the primary purpose of the boundary line adjustment, and of primary benefit to all concerned. It wouldn't, in our view, it would not be of any negative consequence to the state facilities or to anyone on those properties. We'd like to work with all concerned to see that it happens if it's the county's pleasure to work with the town on that. We think it would be of benefit to all. The water issue is much more complicated. Of course, they're related, but the water issue is something that has been of great concern to the town of Crew and the town of Burkeville, rightfully, and to Nottoway. And there's been a lot of consternation about it over the past few years, and rightly so. But we believe, due to many, many factors, that it could be, as Mr. Mullen mentioned, a real opportunity for the region in many ways. We'd like to work with all the players. We believe we have an opportunity to do that now. I understand there's been a lot of frustration about communication and that kind of thing, but I'm cautiously optimistic, to sort of use a phrase that's tossed around a lot, but I am cautiously optimistic that we could have a solution, or could work on a solution that could be of benefit to everybody, save a good deal of money, avoid some costs, and also protect the revenues for the town of Crew, because honestly that is a big part of this, so that the town can continue to operate effectively for the benefit of the region. Because if Crew suffers, the region suffers, and if Burkeville suffers, the region suffers. We believe that the water project that's been conceptualized, and there's a lot of questions that still have to be answered, there's a lot of decisions that have yet to be made. We believe that it could benefit Burkeville as well in a number of ways, and they could benefit just as much, if not more, than Crew. But Crew would like the opportunity to have the boundary line adjustment for the population. We have no reason to believe that the population at those facilities would not be counted for VDOT purposes. The redistricting, there was a limitation on the way they reconfigured the way you count those types of populations for redistricting, but it was limited for that purpose. It didn't affect the VDOT issue. So we believe that that would trigger the VDOT funding. And the water issue, we're continuing to work on that, and we will continue to work on it. But we believe we can hit the reset button, if you will, and come up with something that's going to help everybody. So happy to answer any questions to the extent I can, but again, I'm very, very new to the scene. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Welch, did you have something else you wanted to add? Sure.
I want to make a couple comments. I'm not going to say that anybody from Crew is being misleading. On August 9th, as we know, some point I think it was March 9th, was mentioned that that's when they dropped the boundary line on the workshop that I think everybody in the county was kind of blindsided by. On August 9th, Mayor Muskovic messaged me and reached out to me about Burkeville's opposition, were we causing the county to block their boundary line adjustment. That was really the first communication I had from the town of Crew, to follow you up, of their proposed boundary line adjustment. Until that point, I knew what the county had heard. Of course, Steve had sent me a picture of the first map. I was kind of caught off guard by it. So through some additional text messages, I had reached out to Phil and said, you know, my council would like to have a full-blown sit-down meeting with your council. He had kind of gave me a little bit of a schooling on what a town manager is, which I appreciate. That was very thoughtful of you. I kind of felt like I think you guys did. You all didn't approach me. You guys kind of left me out in the dark. Why do I got to come begging you to have a meeting with you? You want to take 14 of my customers. Sean Davis repeatedly sits here and says, we're not trying to hurt Burkeville. How do you not hurt Burkeville when you take 14 of my customers? I wouldn't take 14 of yours. I'm sure Billy would be up here and be pissed off just like I am that you're trying to take 14 customers. While you stand here in a public meeting, and I'm not going to say you're a liar, but you're leading a false narrative that you're not trying to hurt my town. That's false. You're trying to take my fire department's first response area. You're trying to disrupt the mail. You all can get upset. I understand. I'm pissed off. I've been sitting back
We're
there
going to
too.
have civil discourse.
They don't understand where I'm standing. Like Steve said, the county shut the school down with my previous administration. I don't feel my previous council or my mayor did enough to stop it. That was years before I became mayor. I was encouraged to run for mayor because Joe was retiring. I ran for mayor. I won. I represent the 417 Burkeville residents. It's not 2,200 like Crew has. It's not the 4,000 some odd Blackstone has. I'm the smallest town in the county. I'm also the one who has to fight the most to have the biggest voice. Once again, on October 15th, I requested a meeting, my council, with their council. What did they say? We don't want to have a public meeting. We want the administrators to sit down. I'm not going to sit down and negotiate with anyone without my entire council. I don't speak for my entire town. Me and my council speak. Similar with Mr. Costin, or if his absence, Ms. Stelmer would do. She would bring her entire board, or Mr. Costin would bring his entire board, just like we've done tonight. The original motion, if we go back in time when we think about it, that Mr. Bowen made was 2 elected members of council, or 2 elected members of government, plus 1 representative, staffer. Burkeville has complied by my town has brought 1 mayor / town manager. Okay, I'll take 2 people. I wear 2 hats, might as well carry them both tonight too. And I brought my town attorney. I'm well within what the county asked. They've brought an elected mayor, 2 elected council people, a town manager, a lawyer, and they've sat here for 45, 50 minutes taking up our time. They haven't went right from the beginning. They're not being quite honest about hurting Burkeville because that's clearly what they're trying to do. If they weren't trying to come down Inverness Road, like their map indicates, they wouldn't be taking my 14 customers. You can shake your head all you want, it's fine. The point is, the map says it all. The post office thing is a null and valid point, or null and void at this point, because like Mr. Rourke pointed out, the post office ain't gonna give anybody anything. You can pull up 3 mailboxes. The post office happens to be in my town. VCBR alone carries out 5 boxes of mail. They don't deliver it to VCBR. Piedmont Hospital sends a van up there, picks up 2 to 3 boxes of mail. They don't deliver there. The prison, the same deal. Guess what? In the morning they pick up mail, and in the evening they bring mail going out. So it's not postal stops. It's letter pieces. So if we're gonna have an honest, mature adult conversation, let's be honest, open, and transparent. Let's not continue to make sly comments, shake our head, and come up here and tell fallacies. Let's be honest. Because I'm pissed off, DGS didn't reach out to me till December 9th. So if anybody's been left in the dark on this, it's been me.
Okay.
Billy had plenty of conversations with him, or his town manager. Brian Throwers had multiple conversations, or his mayor. I've had one. No emails, one conversation. I was promised a follow-on phone call the week of Christmas. And I called Ted and I said, hey, did you hear about this meeting week Christmas? No, I ain't heard nothing about it. It wasn't until last week I got an email with an invitation for a teleconference for tomorrow. 2 communications the town of Burkeville has officially got from the state. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mayor Welch. Yes, sir.
As it is a work session, a couple things did occur to me where we might add some clarity. I don't know anybody well enough in the room to attack anybody personally, but I do think it would be useful to gather some facts to the extent that they may be useful to you. If you prefer to have the town of Crewe negotiate on behalf of water supply in the western part of Nottoway County, then the boundary adjustment would probably be the appropriate thing. If instead you'd rather have some different control over that, then you have a different set of decisions to make. One of the things that I talked about was how there's a difference between what Mr. Miskovich said in his reading of the code and what I was talking about. Mr. Miskovich talks about what happens after those people are added to the population. He read it from the code. I assume it's accurate. I wasn't following along, but what I was suggesting is it is at least possible, and I feel bad because I don't know the answer to this tonight, nor am I sure that it's even to be found in the code. How do those people get counted? Now, it could be that that's not, you may have already decided, I want the town of Crewe to be the face of Nottoway County for water provision. Maybe that's something you've already decided. If so, that fact is not important. If that fact is important to you, I can tell you that we've got 2 very good attorneys in the room, and you've got me. And I know how to put together an Attorney General's request for an opinion if, in fact, these 2 other fine colleagues can't sort that out. There are a lot of questions. I can't tell you what the post office is going to do. And Mr. Rourke, you asked me a great question. Do I have anything in writing that says the post office is going to change its service? I'm just going to wait. There's also nothing that says they're not, nor do I think that we would expect to receive a response from the federal government, the United States Postal Service, any quicker than the mail comes. So I'm not sure that that's a question could be answered. Anybody can stand up here and hypothesize about what might happen next, but the folks who are sitting here are going to have to answer to their constituency when those things actually occur. And those guesses should probably be as right as possible, again, but only if they're important to you. If not, I'm just wasting everyone's time. But for some of those questions, specifically the ones that have to do with matters of law, we have the wherewithal to sort those out, if they matter.
Thank you. Okay, so although the town of Blackstone is not directly involved in the boundary line adjustment issue, they're an important part of the water discussion. And this board would be interested in hearing about Blackstone's willingness and ability to provide water supply to the western end of the county, or your other thoughts on the issue.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
We're going to be short and sweet tonight from the heart. Town of Blackstone wants to get along with everybody, and if Burkeville has a data center that comes and locates in Burkeville, then by golly, we're happy for Burkeville, because folks in Blackstone can drive shorter to work. I too was taken aback by the hasty departure of the state reps, and some of the emails that Mr. Sean Davis referred to do indeed exist. In fact, I will get them to all of you. to sit here tonight and say that all options are on the table, I'm glad to hear that, because that is certainly that was not what was told to our town manager. In fact, I have a copy of it right now. But again, I think the main theme I want to project from Blackstone tonight is we want to be good partners with Nottoway County, Crew, Burkeville. Brian, you're a hard-working mayor. You're doing and I don't blame you for being upset that the state hadn't contacted you. But this is what I'm about to tell you is biblical, and I put my word and integrity on the line on this. This town manager and I were invited to lunch in December 2020. It was going to be in Burkeville at Marino's. Marino's was closed. We went to Bravo's Italian Grill at the request of Prince Edward County and Joe D'Amico. Oh, no, Joe Hines, the engineer for the Timmons Group. And at that luncheon, all that was discussed was this wonderful possibility of interconnection. The Sandy River Reservoir, Fort Pickett Reservoir, together building a water supply for our region that would last for generations. Because the fact of the matter is right now, Blackstone, we do have plenty of water. And I say that with all humility. God, thank you, because we all know we're going to have a massive drought. But Blackstone is fine, okay? But you can never say to future generations, we've got enough water, we don't need any more. You take all you can get, like Steve Bowen said. Joe Morris has said for years, wars will be fought over water. But there was never any discontent or questions raised about the quality of Fort Pickett. It was all this wonderful interconnection, regionalism. My only question at the time was this: Joe Hines, Doug Stanley, who's going to run the water lines? And how much is it going to cost? Because in 1995, we did have a war in this county over water, and the reason Blackstone fought so hard, and as a matter of fact, we're going to talk factual tonight, the reason the town of Blackstone does have the deed to the Fort Pickett Reservoir because we were threatened. Because at the time, previous Crew administrations, there was a prospect in the county that was going to consume 1 million gallons of water a day. And it was an industry that was going to pay low wages, not data center wages, and that water authority would have had the authority to draw water out of the Blackstone Reservoir. We in Blackstone, there was a referendum, the referendum failed, and since that time, relations between the towns, in my opinion, and the county have been better than ever. My role in this, and I think the town manager's role in this, has been one of reaction. When people invite you to meet, you meet. There's been no plotting by Blackstone. In fact, I even dread the thought of Blackstone being in a position where one day we might be the water god that says, well, we've got this much capacity, Burkeville's got a prospect, Crew's got a, we can't do both. There are concerns about, like I said, how much water, what locality can boast and beat its chest and say it has enough water for generations to come? No one can do that. But you gotta play the cards you're dealt. And here's some painful facts about Nottoway County. Nottoway County is a county with good people, not a lot of water. We don't have it. We don't have the water. Now, if there's some way we can connect to Prince Edward County, again, we are open to all that. I'm open, and not this mayor over here, but one of your members of council does have a chip on his shoulder. There's been a lie in this county being told that Blackstone wants to be the controller. Blackstone don't want anybody else to prosper, and that is a damn lie, and I'll say it on the record, pardon my English, but I need to get that on the record. A rising tide lifts all boats, but again, the simple question is, and I could not believe the evasiveness of the state people tonight. I mean, they did not want to be here. They did not want to be here. Who's going to pay for the lines? Okay? I hear talk about Western Nottoway, and that makes me feel a little left out because, like I said, Blackstone's fine. We would love to make a deal with Crew, and Steve Bowen was on the phone call when we had our first teleconference with the state. You were on the call, and I said, look, if we're going to truly talk regional, this was us and the state, Crew was not on the call, I said, if you're going to talk regional, well, you got to include Burkeville. You cannot leave Burkeville out of this. That's a fact. Now, of course.
That was stated, by the way, on the meeting minutes from the State Department of General Services. I think all along the state's intentions were not just Burkeville and not just Crew, but to ditch both you guys. Okay? The plan was never to interconnect. As Mickey Jones told Steve Bowen and I in 2018, I still have her card. The intention was we're bypassing Crew because they haven't been good partners. Ronnie Rourke and Steve met. So the fact that Ronnie Rourke or Steve Bowen didn't tell you about a meeting in 2018 ain't Crew's fault. Your county administrator didn't tell you what was going on, okay? And the state said at that meeting they were bypassing the town of Crew. They told me, Steve Bowen, and Ronnie Rourke, sitting in that meeting, it's our intention to leave Crew out. They intended on running it either down the railroad right-of-way or under the transmission lines, okay? The big transmission line that runs through the county. That was their plan because they didn't want to run a water line through Crew and bail them out with that bad water line that they've got, okay? When Phil Miskovic found out about it, that's when Phil started saying, state, you got to come through us, you got to talk to us. What has the town honestly done? The town has honestly said on April 30th, 2021, this ain't the state, not DGS, the state noted in their minutes from the mayor's comments, they also stated that Burkeville is a small town that is currently served by 7 wells, and if possible, we should see what can be done to secure their water supply as well. That didn't come from the state, that came from Billy Colburn, specifically, okay? And in 2018, when we had this meeting, they didn't have Crew's best interest in mind then. They don't have their best interest in mind now. We don't have a dog in a fight. But I will tell you this, the state's behavior throughout, and I'll read you an email that I printed off today, that on November 19th, after 2+ weeks of not hearing back from the state, Chris Porras, I assume he was here today, Chris Porras, have not heard back from this, from me to Chris, have not heard back from you today. I know you're busy. The town of Blackstone's Fire and Water Committee shall discuss the rates previously distributed to all parties. The committee shall meet at 3 p.m. December 14th, 2021. You know what we got out of that?
What?
This email is to inform you that the DGS has decided to pursue obtaining water for the state facilities in Nottoway County from another source other than Blackstone. D'Amico indicated that you needed our decision prior to close of business. I just wanted to report to council. We didn't need a decision. But the State Department of General Services, specifically Joe D'Amico, and also Chris Porras, and another gentleman named Vu Chin that also works for him, have never had these localities in their best interest. I can tell you in 2018, and Steve can tell you, they intended on ditching Crew many years ago. This has just worked out to their benefit, okay? These are facts, these are written down, these are absolute, okay?
We got some age on it. Again, I want to emphasize this, and I apologize for my emotion earlier, but the town manager said something. At this point, we just want to be left alone. But I will tell you one thing, and Mr. Attorney, no offense, but you accomplished your mission last month. You dropped the bomb. You dropped the bomb on the question. You may not have meant to drop the bomb. Somebody may have told you to drop the bomb. But when you come in here and cast a shadow over the town of Blackstone's water supply, let me tell you what's happened since then. Oh, we're going to work. We're getting a whole lot of data. It's not just on the Fort Pickett Reservoir either. And that's all I'm going to say right now. But don't come in here dropping bombs on Blackstone. We want to be left alone. I want to see, it hurts me to see Burkeville and Crew, the officials, the people are fine. The status of Nottoway County among the people is great. Every now and then elected officials have a little brouhaha, and then some people go, oh, it's bad. The sky isn't falling. Not yet. But the state folks leaving tonight, DGS folks, that was breathtaking. I don't like to make, I'm not a flair for drama, but that was breathtaking to me. And like I said, when the rhetoric didn't match the emails, and emails are old. They ought to be better than that. When you put an email, they ought to know what emails they sent. That was weak. I'm done. I love all of y'all. We'll get through this, and we got a good town manager.
Very quickly, last couple items. First thing is, we also, town council informed me that we needed to send the state a bill for them misleading us as badly as they have through this thing. Our engineers did $26,000 of work. Copies are here for you, okay? It exceeded our task order amount, which was $10,000. So I told the engineer, if the state will pay it, we'll pay you. If the state won't pay it, sorry, it's $10,000 bucks. That was our deal. So I sent by email to Joe D'Amico asking for consideration. He said, that's not our problem. That's not our problem. So the taxpayers, your taxpayers that live in your district and your district are going to pay a $10,000 bill to B&B Consultants, and the state didn't care. Okay? So if anybody has any thought that the state cares about us in this issue, it's not true, okay? It's simply untrue. Burkeville was an afterthought, only brought up because Billy brought it up. And the town of Crew in 2018 was already on the way out the door, as said by Mickey Jones with the Department of Behavioral Health and Rehabilitation, okay? Those are the facts. So whatever the state told you, I didn't come in till late, those are the facts, okay? They have not behaved with great compassion toward the locality. We don't have a dog in the fight, and I don't want to pick Burkeville or Crew no more than you guys want to have to do that. That's no fun, right? But I'm telling you, the state has not been looking out for our best interests in our dealings with the state, okay? And that comes from the top, Joe D'Amico, on down through the folks. Talk about PFAs real quick. Mr. Mullen indicated to you that he has concerns about our reservoir. Sir, you know nothing about our reservoir, nor does Joe Hines. That's a fact, okay? In fact, I have a copy of the ICMA Code of Ethics that I'd like to present to you, sir. Since you were a county administrator, you may be familiar with these, you may want to work with those. PFAs in the reservoir that is manufactured by Joe Hines at Timmons and Associates. There has been testing done. That testing is all downstream from the reservoir. Joe Hines knows that. We've informed him that. Fort Pickett has done the testing on sites. In addition, Fort Pickett has tested our water. In conversation with the Adjutant General this week, he said, yes, we've done this many times before, and we've deemed your water safe. Okay? So the disparaging comments from this fellow back here who doesn't know anything about Nottoway County should count for nothing. We have great concerns about other water sources that have been talked about, and I recommend you spend a significant amount of time on a 2011 Draper-Aden study because it's very telling. There's discussions about PFAs, okay, being potentially cancer-causing. We don't disagree. But in conversation with Ray Weiland at the Department of Health, the Department of Health does not even have parameters to test for. It is not a tested or sampled product, okay? EPA has guidelines, but our permit and the Department of Health from the state does not require testing because it's such an imperfect science. They have not created those standards, okay? So there is no formal sampling that the town has done, but Fort Pickett has done it on 2 occasions that we know, okay? The term carcinogen, okay, is what gets people worried about PFAs, okay? But I think you really need to be thoughtful. The state also needs to be thoughtful about disinfection byproducts, which are going to be a serious problem in the future with other resources or other water resources, okay? Those are facts. Those are true. 2011 Draper-Aden, check it out, okay? But what happened here at this last meeting that I read about in the newspaper was a travesty. This gentleman should be ashamed of himself coming down here. Saying that he was a county administrator at one time, I cannot even fathom what a mercenary this guy is.
All right, we've reached the end of our agenda for this evening. Are there any additional comments from members of the board? Mr. Ward?
Yes, ma'am. Well, I got a few. Y'all hold your ears. One thing's for sure, the attorneys are making some money off Nottoway citizens right now. I mean, that's clear. I would just pose this as a question, Madam Chair, that maybe needed to be posed to the 2 towns. Do y'all want to meet? I think that's a relevant question and something that should be clarified. You know, you got 417 citizens compared to 22. Someone's not going to be happy. The one consistency here tonight is that DGS is absolutely inconsistent. And as I understand it, that if the county votes no to both towns, the county could potentially lose control of the situation. So, but I also want to touch on something that I actually had prepared here. After the Timmons group approached us to be added to their withdrawal permit application, there was a meeting out at Fort Pickett Officers Club roughly a year ago now. And Joe Hines from the Timmons Group mentioned in a statement about providing water to state and federal facilities. Now, back to the last time the folks were here, DGS had already publicly stated that Blackstone was not an option, but yet Mr. McMullen stood before us and spoke about his concerns about Blackstone's water supply. Now, my concerns are that the target is not just Prince Edward providing water to the state facilities in Burkeville, but Blackstone and Fort Pickett as well, and hell, maybe even all of Nottoway County. So, in closing, I would like to read this final statement. Who is going to go door to door to tell all the families in the town of Crewe that we didn't fight for them? Who's going to tell them that we voted to allow a minimum loss of their current household income of $500 per year moving forward? Who's going to tell Crewe's local businesses that they will have to increase prices to their valued customers, which would result in loss of customers because of rising prices and even business closures? We as elected officials are constantly being tasked with making life easier, progressive, and modern and at an acceptable pace. And when a town is trying to do just that, someone or something sets up a roadblock. Not this time. Crew is trying to make strides that in no way, shape, or form will hinder Burkeville's progress on any project they would like to do moving forward. I will support Burkeville getting a water source from whomever they choose moving forward, and that can be accomplished without a boundary line adjustment. At this time, I fully intend to vote for Crew to move forward with a boundary line adjustment and not impede progress for the citizens of that town when, again, it does not impact Burkeville moving forward. Burkeville Fire and EMS will still have the first due through a MOU or other agreement moving forward, and Burkeville citizens will still get their mail. Who is going to tell the poor, retired, handicapped, or other challenged citizens and Crew that we can justify voting for revenue to go out of the county, and yet they will have to pay more without an increase in their yearly household income? Who is going to tell the citizens of Crew that we don't have confidence in you all to move forward, so we are going to leave you behind? Who? Well, it won't be me. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Bowen?
One thing I want to clarify before I get to my comment section, I want to clarify something that Philip has said, and I want him to make sure we understand each other. One thing Philip left out on that, is that he did say in that meeting to Mickey Jones that he would not do anything to harm the town of Crew. But you didn't bring that up. But anyway, I just want to say that. And I said nothing at that meeting. I was there to listen. That's right. All I did was put two people together. Okay. I want to be sure everybody understands that.
Boy, you didn't say anything.
That was hard. So, but I want to go back with Mayor Colburn said a little while ago, and he mentioned it. He says, you know, Nottoway County, we don't have water. You know, however, let's be realistic. We depend on state and federal facilities on the western end and the eastern end. It doesn't matter. We depend on these facilities, and they are our big brother. And I think what had happened is, I think some damage was done in the past. But I think also we need to say this too. We need to say this because I think a lot of people, we hounded on the previous administration. Guess what? We all one day going to be previous administration. It's going one day somebody will say, what idiot put the animal shelter in Burkeville? You see what I'm saying? Sooner or later, we're going to be previous administration. But I think those people at that time, to take up for them a little bit, they did what they thought was right at the time, and they were trying to serve their citizens and do the best they can, okay? Which what we all trying to do. And if you make 1,000 decisions, you're not going to make every decision right. But we have 3 towns that I am very proud of, and they have pride too. And I've always tried to stay out of the town business as a county official. And when I'm invited, I'm invited. But I just want to say this, and I think Mr. Davis said it. You know, they're looking for us now. But it's not my fault that you charged the state 600-some thousand gallons of water and you did nothing to your infrastructure. That's not our fault. I want to clarify that. That's it.
Ms. Simmons?
I just want to say, Crew, Burkeville, and Blackstone, it's Nottoway. That's where I live. That's where I've lived all my life. And it's not that I don't care. I care the same for each part of Nottoway County. Because even though I represent mainly Crew, I still care about Blackstone. I care about Burkeville. I care about all the constituents. So when something like this, when I feel a divide between Burkeville and Crew, that's not good. And we need to fix it. It needs to be fixed. We don't need to be sitting here arguing about, because we want to get along. All of us want to get along. It's always been Crew and Burkeville. Crew and Burkeville. They've always gotten along. So we don't want to put a divider in that now. Yes, we need water. Yes, we need the water. But we need to come to a conclusion as to how we can help everyone without hurting any of our towns. We have 3 great towns. I love living in Nottoway, and I tell people I'm proud to live in Nottoway. That's where I come from. They may not know where it is, but that's okay. So each of the towns. I mean, I'm proud of Blackstone, I'm proud of Crew, and I'm proud of Burkeville, because they are Nottoway County. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Ms. Shackleton.
Mr. Vaughn?
I don't have anything at this particular time, but I would like to offer some advice to Crew. That advice would be to diversify your income and not build your financial structure on one particular thing. I worked with the budget for the county for the last 30 years, and I've been on the budget committee for at least 20 years. But you need to diversify. All of this too shall pass. This is going to pass, and we're going to work it out one way or the other. We're going to work it out. But in a way, that advice should be taken into the future. Thank you.
Okay. Many thanks to everybody who participated tonight and everybody who has an interest enough to attend. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Madam Chair.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, respond with aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned.
More than me, Andrew.
I'm sorry that